Hafa and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today for this important discussion. The Guam Contractors Association envisions the next decade will be a period of significant change for Guam. Hopefully, with all of us at the table today, working toward common goals, the future promises great opportunities. We appreciate you for your valuable time and your expertise. You are helping GCA pursue its mission of building Guam today for a better tomorrow. Thank you all again for joining us, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
All right, next speaker, and this company won the Construction of the Year 2025. Congratulations to Kathleen David with Pacific Rim, please. She is also the vice chair of the GCA.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen David, Vice Chair of GCA, and I'm also working with Pacific Rim. On behalf of the GCA board, I would like to thank everyone for your continued support for the organization. Your support has made meaningful impact on the construction industries, especially for small business like ours. So thank you once again, and happy holidays.
Yeah. I like these quick speeches. It goes by real quick, so it allows our very special guests a little more time, such as the LT. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So, with that said, we have a small group, and I want everyone just to be, casual. Let's enjoy each other's space and time. Wish each other a very Merry Christmas, and let's get started. LT, you're up first. Usually it's Siska, but, thank you for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Merry Christmas, everybody. All right. So this morning I'm going to talk about a couple things. As you know, I have my eye on what's going on the regulatory permitting world. But then I'm also going to share with you my recent engagements in DC, talking about what we can see coming forward for us in 2026 with regards to our engagements with the Department of War and how we're going to address the Guam's critical infrastructure needs. Okay. I wanted to recognize that we have a whole bunch of people in the government that are here this morning. Matt Santos back there. Well, first of all, let me say good morning to the speaker. I see him back there, and Senator Therese Terlahi. Good morning. Anybody else here from the leadership? I'm really happy that we're all here so that we can listen from you. But I want to thank Matt Santos back there, the Deputy Director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. He kind of helps us keep an eye on what's going on in all the regulatory agencies. You'll hear a bit more from Guam EPA in a few hours. You'll hear from Dave and Greg from Labor. There's a lot of engagement alongside with JRM and Department of War trying to address the alien labor situation. I see Lindy here, so you have your experts here that can guide you. So at the Guam Land Use Commission, there was a period of time that things were just frozen. And it started clearing up in 2023 when we started getting good folks to come on boards and to actually show up to meetings. And as you know, our chairwoman over there is EOG President Anita Enriquez. And so you'll see that the amount of applications coming in are being addressed quite rapidly, actually. And if you notice that in 2024, there was a spike. So when you look at Guam Land Use Commission, and I think Siska will talk about this, when you look at, this is a good gauge. It's a gauge. It's not, I wouldn't say you should rely on 100%. It's a good gauge about what's going on with investment and development. Of course, the second part of that's going to have to do with the big elephant in the room, which is the reality that we're dealing with skilled labor for projects outside the fence, which is why H2 labor policy, and it's great that JRM has been a good partner trying to qualify projects because of adverse impact, but the reality is that we're working collectively with Department of War to try and figure out how we can get statutory considerations and flexibility that allow very proactively the H2B support for projects outside. Dave will talk about that. And I'll tell you that, and Juan Carlos is here, there's 4 different proposals that, based on who we talk to, both of us, I would say we're in a big partnership trying to figure out how we gauge the national temperature and the different players that have surfaced with regards to dealing with immigration, right? This is a very disruptive time in the federal government, but we also have a very, very well-received and well-regarded alien labor program on Guam for the last 40 years. That is one of our credibilities, and I think Juan Carlos, Mr. Jordan, from the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, is our biggest hill to climb, but I understand one of his former staff is at Department of War now, so we're going to try and navigate that with him. When we're looking at workforce housing, this is a reflection of what the Guam Land Use Commission has approved. They've approved 7,203 units already. Greg and Dave will tell you what units are actually being listed as a consequence of alien labor applications. There has to, for a worker to, as you know, you have to provide housing support. That's part of the approval process. There's additional capacity of 5,440 that are going through the process, with 1,040 that is actually pending GLUC approval, which means that those are construction projects or big scale rehab of maybe abandoned buildings. There is another issue where we're sure that apartment buildings are not being purchased and local people are being displaced in favor of H2s. That's a big issue for us, and we're trying to make sure that our people, as a result. This is a lot of stuff on this slide, but on the left you'll see DPW permits, and these are performance measurements. In other words, 17%, you'll see there, of building permits were approved from 0 to 10 days. So this is kind of like, you'll see that the longest ones, maybe 101 projects, 13% are 101 days plus. This is, there's a big, I would say a big delay going on with us getting, we're going through, I guess we're on our third mystery of procurement with online permitting right now. We have a third procurement coming out. The reason why an online permitting system is necessary and is one of our goals is it allows both the developers and the contractors and the government to really see where the true hiccups are. Sometimes I get calls from contractors about delays at EPA. When I call EPA, I find out that some of the subcontractors are not submitting things. You know, maybe there's a lacking stormwater drain plan. Maybe that they actually didn't really submit the permit application on time. And as we know from the project that various projects, you know, with in this development, in this period of development, we just need to try and continue to calibrate it so we can try and make some more progress. On the bottom side, that chart, you're going to see Guam EPA numbers, and Glenn St. will be here to talk about that. Guam, for the military contracts, the truth is that there's embedded assistance from NAVFAC with technical folks that are helping Guam EPA with processing. But NAVFAC is calling the shots on the order of applications to be reviewed based on the mission priorities of the Department of the Navy and when the MILCON is actually coming out. So, you know, I've seen situations where some contractors are trying to skip the line, but the truth is that the line is jointly, or the order is jointly developed It is driven by Department of War, and it's something that we're informed of, and as the partner on all MilCon, we're going to stay with the order that we agreed to, and that's based on what the mission is going to be for Department of War. In the last few years, we've put a considerable amount of online resources, and I would draw your attention to, and we'll send this out to you, but BSP has published the GovGuam GIS live and online. And I say that because for your technical folks in their engineering departments, they can do a lot of work right now. There are overlays for storm drain. There's overlays. Matt, is there overlays for cultural resources also? Sure. So in other words, if you're going to be developing a piece of property, you need to, hopefully your engineering company already has this, but this is in response to really providing a lot of contractors with information to help them with their research and to cut time. So what they've done is they've overlaid all of the different geological factors in the property so that you can really catch up and try and get your technical people in line to try and figure out what your paths are going to be. It is a big tool that's never been online before, and I would tell you that if your folks are turned on to it, it's going to result in a better work product for you, and it's going to be less time. And so we also have, we recently, in partnership with the feds, also published the stormwater management plan. This is a very important aspect. This is a very key permitting delay. You know, a lot of people on the residential side, they start building concrete walls around the property, and stormwater starts flowing into places where they've never been before, and it causes problems. So BSP has been doing a whole bunch of training to try and get people up to par with getting these stormwater plans together and cutting the amount of time and increasing compliance when you're going through your permitting. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we're doing some training over with GCA, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I think that's the Okay, all right. So there was a May convening. We'll plan for another one, I think, after the beginning of the year. So those are just a summary of a few things. You'll see more of the folks in government coming up. But I wanted to spend some time talking to you about the Economic Adjustment Committee request and the process that we see going forward. We received some very good news. You saw that in the news. Congressman Moylan pushed it out. Bob Thompson from Department of War, who is one of the folks in charge of the programs, is informed us that we are now jointly laying the groundwork for the engagement of the EAC. So what we expect in the next few months is we expect Department of War and the office that they've assigned to us to convene an interagency working group in the next few months. Now, this interagency working group is assembling the key people and the key programs are going to address some of our critical infrastructure needs. Concurrently, we have our office, through a grant from Office of Local Community Defense Programs, contracted and have Tetra Tech on staff. And Tetra Tech has been working with us to identify and vet all of our critical infrastructure projects so that they're ready really for either program funding or congressional action. Our critical projects include, obviously, it includes as its lead the construction of a new civilian hospital. It includes the several $1 billion worth of resilience needed for Guam's energy system. It includes a lot of the roads that are both classified as defense access roads, but also roads that are leading to any one of the number of missile defense sites that have been, that are part of the record of decision that has been issued for the missile defense system. It also includes areas in water, upgrades in the port, a very important program with cyber resilience. And I just want to talk about the cyber program for a bit. when you're looking at some of the stated threats that we receive from China, you'll see that a lot of their plan is attacking civilian infrastructure. So power, water, civilian hospitals, these are all high-level targets in that kind of program. And obviously, there's a lot of work needed for cyber resilience, and we do have a lot of forward support from Indo-PACOM. They've been already working with Guam Power. They've already been working with through the Department of Homeland Security, working at the Port Authority and the Airport Authority. And our folks on the ground are working with them to kind of set up the orders of priorities. We've had a whole bunch of exercises. We have more planned this year. But we also have some additional resource to help us identify projects. And one opportunity that we look at is we're asking the White House to give their support to our request to use $125 million in non-deployment funds in the BEAD program to invest in modernization projects and cyber resilience programs. That's a funding source that we think is going to help us do things like put underground power into all of the private sector telecommunications distribution centers, into data areas, things to try and eliminate some of the threats that we still have that we experienced during Typhoon Mawar. If you know, our entire civilian communications infrastructure is private sector run, and it is the most unregulated industry in the entire United States. That being said, I think that we do know now where all the hundreds of distribution sites are, and some of this money, I think, is going to help us try and address resilience and trying to eliminate the threat that we have, which is that we still do have a threat for communications to go down, either in a natural weather event or in case there is an act from a foreign actor. Those are all certain kinds of things. I think lastly, I would say that, just this morning I saw General Gardner up there, so there's 4 Army generals that are here right now, and we met with them yesterday. There is forward movement on the assignment of Army service members. I think next year we're going to see an additional 350 active duty Army coming into Guam as part of the missile defense of the island. We're working collaboratively with the National Guard, trying to find opportunities to upskill our service members so that they can take permanent operations responsibilities for elements of the missile defense system. That's a conversation that is supported both by JRM here and by Indo-PACOM. And I think that we do have the talent. I always say that the guardsmen and reservists that are stationed here that have that heritage of being invaded and occupied, you're never going to find a defender that's more committed on this island than them. And I think that we're looking forward to really trying to provide opportunities for them while still navigating the realities that we're dealing with. And one reality is affordability. We have a big issue where there's a big gap going on in the economy. This sector of the economy is doing quite well, but tourism sector is not doing that well right now. Those are the areas that we have to prepare for. The second thing is we have a major disruption going on in the federal government, and federal priorities have shifted, and a lot of us have to basically navigate the new reality. I've been speaking with some people in the natural resource and conservation side, and to me, I see it as a balance. In the prior administration, there was unprecedented funding support for research programs and projects that are in many ways a bridge over a situation where the national priorities have shifted. And that's just the reality that we'll have to deal with. With regards to federal support, obviously a significant amount of our agencies receive federal support, and we do have statutory obligations to make sure that federal programs are going to be pushed rather aggressively. But even then, we have to work to basically forecast what changes are going to be. Changes in income eligibility on welfare programs is one thing, but on the other side, it means that we have opportunities to focus on things that we know are working. We've doubled the number of apprentices that we've had over the last 7 years. So finding new workspaces and upskilling them, providing more scholarship, that's what we're doing with the Guam Contractors Association to get more people into certified technical fields, I think is the trend that I see. And one of the things that I'm proposing that I'm excited about is I've been talking to the Navy. You know, Southern High School is only 40% occupied. They have a beautiful facility for vocational education. We do need a full-time vocational high school. We don't have one. The vocational programs, Dave knows this because both he and I went there. The vocational programs in DOE are fine, and they're good, but they're not resulting in employment into the workforce like a full-time vocational high school will do. We had engagement a few weeks ago with Chief Naval Operations, and we're advocating to have a dry dock here. I told the head of the Navy that it's in our genes. We did ship repair. The kids at Southern High School are the grandchildren of all those people that worked at SRF, so it's in our blood. We can do this. And I think hoping we'll get some good signals from the Navy so we can make some decisions, partner with the private sector, and start expanding ship repair. I think that's also one of the priorities that I see and the opportunities coming in the next few years. So I guess that's, I know, Joe, we're doing some, what time is it? 8:35. Time for questions, and then I'm not sure, and Siska is going to be after me, so thank you very much.
Anybody with a question? Question. Singular form.
Charlie, I see your hand coming up.
Good morning, again. Thank you so much for the update. We should not be paying, but OTAC can't figure out how to turn it off. So when we talk about online, modernization of our systems internal to the island, doing business, the ease of doing business, getting our permitting online, how are we moving forward with trying to get some of these IT infrastructures to the next level?
Well, I do have money set aside already that is going to be funding the online business license. And to be honest with you, we're going through vendor wars and vendor politics. You see this vendor wars going on the telecom front all the time in procurements. And I have one that we're dealing with the Attorney General's office on the online permitting. That online permitting, this has been already several years now. And so if you want a good business case about, any improvements on government procurement, that perhaps is a good case on all fronts, right, in terms of responsiveness. I'll have to look into the OTEC thing, but I'll tell you, fees, normally it's credit card fees. And sometimes the legislature funds us for credit card fees, and sometimes it doesn't. The reality is, and I want to thank Senator Titagui because I just enacted her law. AI is going to be a tremendous tool for us, and we need to be aware of what that is, because I don't see it necessarily as a threat to workforce, because if you talk to agency folks, you'll know that there's a whole bunch of work volume that is behind because there's a staffing issue, and AI has an opportunity to kind of eliminate that and shift staff to customer facing and maybe to things that are a bit more effective. I would say that I've seen health record technology that helps doctors be able to summarize health records so that their time with the patient is more quality. So I see that as the front. A bunch of opportunities on the bead too is getting the workforce trained, and I do see an opportunity working with local telecom to provide some funding support and scholarship money to help get people up. We also, I would say the opportunity is in the change in generations in the workforce. So, people are retiring or leaving jobs, and the younger folks are, as you know, are able to maybe navigate in ways. One thing I'll tell you is I also see a lot more technology on the law enforcement front. I mean, you know this from the drone side, but I see that also as another opportunity on the modernization front, especially with fire department and in the airport also. I've also, there's a lot of radars going on. We need to deconflict these things so we can mandate and guarantee commercial aviation and try and expand aerospace industry here, given we only have 212 square miles. That being said, that's why working together with the Northern Mariana Islands also is a big opportunity for us because of land. But I'll look at the OTEC thing, I didn't hear about it yet, but thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so the next questions is like, what'd you have for dinner last night? Okay, what are we gonna have for lunch today? But thank you,
Well,
LT.
let me just close by saying, because Speaker is here, Speaker has some legislation that he's gonna talk to you about, and I've talked to him about this before. I'm very open-minded, and the thinking that he has on default approvals, for the most part, I'm totally on board with that. I think where the pressure is regulatory agencies have some concerns, and I always think that we should it's just the parameters of the practice. But I am in favor of default approval because I think it forces and directs regulators to shift their time and attention to the highest risk projects and let the common sense, low risk projects be able to go. So I just wanted to kind of put a plug in there that even though, we have aspirations, right, that may be in conflict, but there are ways I can describe to you that we can work together for what we both agree is, I think, what would improve things on the island. Thank you very much.
LT. We're going to have Merry Christmas. LT's got to run. And one of our favorite speakers is up next. Thank you, LT. Yes, Siska Utapea. I mean, there's a lot of digits behind her name, so let's just put it that way, a lot of digits. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know how to follow that. I think you should run for governor. Maybe. But thank you so much. And Joe, I really appreciate Guam Contractors Association meeting. This meeting, I think it involves all aspects of our economy. And I really appreciate it that because the private sector, the government sector, we all talk, not in silos. And so this is a really good meeting. And I know, probably 3/4 of the economy on this island is standstill because the leaders are all in this room right now, this morning.
God bless you. You're welcome.
Okay, so I would say Lieutenant Governor is really on point when he talks about the Guam economy is depending upon the tourism market, the federal expenditure, and of course the military buildup. And I would like to, although this is a Guam Contractors Association, every aspect of the economy will influence us. It will affect us. And then I'll talk a little bit about the forces in real estate, notable sales recently. And to end the talk, I would like to promote a couple of things that I think is good for Guam. So let's take a look at the tourism arrivals. As you can see here, on calendar year 2025 up to October, we're only at about 615,000 of tourist arrival, which is only 45% of our peak January to October in 2019. And the occupancy tax is a little bit better than the tourist arrival. We're at 68.7% of the 2019. So we know that the tourism industry is really in a dire situation. And it's very important to look at this because despite the military buildup being strong, the tourism industry is the one that kind of circled the money in the local economy. It employs people who pays rent and buy groceries. On the tourist attraction fund, we collected about 31 million for 2025, and if I annualize it, it's about 37 million, which is about 18% higher than the last year. So the movement is upward, but definitely the tourism industry is in a dire situation right now. Not all of it is our problem. Obviously, the strong US dollar is not helping us, and we can't control that. DFS closing at the heart of Pleasure Island, 180,000 square feet of space is going to be empty by March when they close. And that's at the heart of Guam Pleasure Island. Again, it's not entirely our fault because they are closing also in Sydney and Melbourne in Oceania. And luxury retail goods has changed a lot. People don't want to buy, they want it to be an experience. They want to buy their Hermes bag in Paris while sipping croissant. They don't want to buy it just in any store. They want to make it a live experience. So not entirely all our fault, but it's still something that we have to work to make sure that our economy is getting better. Real estate sales volume. So this is where I see that the military buildup money is kind of working. The real estate sales, despite the higher interest rate, is at 506 million. This is a figure as of November, annualized as of November. We're at 506 million, which is 11% higher than last year. And I've seen many military construction related purchases happening in 2025. There's only about 1,028 transactions annualized as of this year, compared to typically about 1,400 a year. This is the snapshot of the Q3. As you can see here, median price for land is the one that is alarmingly went down. And this is, I think, a function of the high construction costs. People can buy land, but then to build the house, it's going to cost them so much money. So not many people are buying land anymore. So I'm going to go through a couple of notable transactions, not many of them. But for example, this former Bank of Guam Santa Cruz, it's in poor condition, very limited parking. But it sold for about $100 a square feet, and the buyer is a military construction related company. Of course, we all know about this hotel. Actually, the total cost to acquire this is about $40 million because they have to pay the leasehold land for about $7 more million. And I've heard that they are planning to either use it to accommodate the demand for military housing or to convert it back into a luxury hotel. This is a 100,000 square meter land acquired again by a military construction related company to build a solar farm near Tenggisan power plant. Another construction company bought this facility of 4 warehouses. It's kind of telling the economy the one who sold it are a distribution company that is closing, and the one who bought it are a military construction company for $5 million, $208 a square feet for a metal warehouse, which is kind of high, but it is located in the heart of Tamuning. Another Route 3 vicinity transaction. This is about 35,000 square meter and sold for $37 square meter, but it doesn't have an open access. So the buyer also bought the land adjacent to it. Another consulting company that is related to construction industry also acquired this former clinic. This is the former clinic of Dr. Joel Rubio in Tamuning, and they acquired this to occupy it as owner-occupant consulting firm facility. Another military construction-related transaction, UEG, United Environmental Group, UEG, acquired this from AIC recently in October 2025. This is en route to A Agate, Santa Rita. Another construction company, and I'm not making this up, is buying this property. This used to be Hansel Phelps' office on Fahrenholt Avenue. About 12,000 square feet of building. On the ground floor, it was commercial, and on the second and third floor, it's a residential unit. Another one, and I think the buyer is going to develop housing here. This is near the former Mangilao Golf Course, which is now called Sono Feliz, Mangilao. Let's talk about the residential market, which is kind of the main issue in our real estate market right now. So, and I've shared this many times in this forum and somewhere else, that the housing is not unique to Guam problem. California has this problem. Anywhere in the mainland, they have this problem. The problem with us is we're such a small island, and every little forces that come to us disrupted the equilibrium, if I may say, harsher than it is in other places. So in our case, when the military buildup started in 2018, our construction costs immediately jump up because we don't have that many construction company capabilities. Construction costs jump up, and so there's limited new supply. And on demand side, the buildup bring in H2 workers that needed housing. And unfortunately, like the Lieutenant Governor mentioned earlier, it displaces some, even though we do have rule in place, it displaces some that used to be people that used to live in the apartment. 50% of it can be used for the H2 workers. So demand increase, supply limited, and we're kind of in a deep trouble. And so that's why, as you can see here, obviously at the top of the market, 2021, the interest rate, when it was 2.5%, everybody, can afford to buy houses here. But look at now, the supply is very limited, and that's why the sales is only at 315 million total. Look at the number of transactions. It's only at 744 compared to about 1,200 before. Median price, we are at $435,000 for single-family dwelling and $320,000 for condo. And looking at this data, before I get to where I'm going with those data, let's take a look at the recent RFI that the NAFAC issue. And it's basically saying right now we have 17,000. By the end of 2033, we're going to have 24,000, and we're going to need 2,400 housing to accommodate this. And that's a lot, 2,400 housing in such a short time. The deadline for the phase 1 is already passed, so I know some of you here submitted your proposal. And I think it's good that the military is actively pursuing the private sector developer to help out with the housing, because then, it creates good economic forces instead of, trying to fulfill it by itself. The phase 2, which is by invitational only, was due on November 1, but then because of the federal government shutdown, they haven't issued the result of phase 1, but I heard it's going to be issued before Christmas on the 24th. So we'll hear about that. What I'm thinking on this one is, so they're soliciting proposal from developer, and it's because they know if they have to build it inside the base. The admiral on one of Chamber of Commerce meeting told us that it cost them 1.8 million to build one unit, and if outside you could probably build it for $600,000 to $800,000, including the land. It will be a more economical way to do it. So, I've been asked, Siska, what is the deal with OHA and BAH? What's the thing? But I think that's an obsolete question right now. 10 years ago, the OAH is substantially above market. Those are when we could rent $600 for 2-bedroom, 2-bath. But now, because of the increased demand and limited new supply, the OAH rates is now kind of similar to the market. And then Gura has already increased their rates into for a 3-bedroom right now for Gura, it's $2,355, which is kind of the same as an officer. I can't remember the ranking, but it's $2,450. It's about the same. So that displaces the local market. So I have thought about this, and I talked to Maria Leon Guerrero from Bank of Guam. We get together sometimes, try to walk around our neighborhood and then try to solve the world problem. But one of the idea that we have is to empower the local to own a house. And I know my good friend Matt Santos from BSP has done so much on the GIS. So I know under the guidance of Lieutenant Governor, they have like a really good GIS that is online. So thank you, Matt, for all the hard work. But there's a lot of local that owns land. They have family that owns land. But and in my experience, when you build a house, you immediately get equity. However, it's daunting for young people who have double income. They both work. It's really daunting to try to build a house. So I was thinking maybe we could either Guam Housing Corporation or a nonprofit organization have these, like, say, 3 sets of floor plan: a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, and maybe 4-bedroom. But it's all in the scale that can be expanded. We all know we in Guam likes to expand. Garage becomes the 4th bedroom. That's typical. But let's do it let's plan it. Let's plan it ahead, and then just start with like a 600 square feet 2-bedroom. If it costs you $200 to $250, a 600 square foot house would only cost you $150. And if you already own the land and you package it, it has a standard. And we package the financing and make it easy for these young people to do it. I think it's doable. So that's one of my idea. And lastly, one thing that I'm very passionate about is about financial literacy. And I know it probably is not related, but it is, really. Yes. If your employee is in credit card debt, they won't work as efficiently as they would if they don't have it. And so I think it's very important. And I saw Superintendent Judith Wonpat on an airplane, and I asked her to include, instead of just home economics, financial literacy curriculum in the high school of Guam. My children benefit from their mom reading Kiplinger magazine, teaching herself time value of money, sinking fund, Roth IRA, 529 plan. A lot of kids a lot of parents in this room teach that to their kids, but there's a lot of people that are not aware of that. They don't know. When I moved to Guam in 2000, that was 1999 when I moved to Guam. I teach myself about financial literacy, American style. So anyway, I think teaching that in high school would level the playing field, and it will create a happier community. I mean, if we start it now, 10 years from now, we'll reap the result. You'll have a financially responsible employers, and that's all that I have to say. But thank you so much for giving me this chance, Joe, and I hope what I shared is worth your valuable time. Thank you.
It is worth every second, Siska. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Half a day and representing Congressman Moylan's office. As Joe said, I am Tanel Tamori. I am the district director for our congressional office. I am joined here by our chief of staff, Ms. Trina Apatang. And I know we have worked very closely with Joe and the Guam Contractors Association, but I will say this is my first speaking engagement on behalf of the congressman. So thank you all so much for being such a gracious audience. And on behalf of Congressman Moylan, I want to say Sidus Masi to our Guam Contractors Association, to the Government, Military, and Labor Affairs Committee for hosting this morning's important discussion. I want to, of course, acknowledge all our speakers, Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, Ms. Siska, for the housing market update you just provided. We have, like Joe said, Speaker Blas, Senator Terlahi, and a wonderful panel before us today. This room represents homes for our families, steady paychecks for our tradespeople, and opportunity for future generations. When industry, local government, and federal partners sit together like this, we protect livelihoods, create opportunities, and invest in the long-term well-being of every neighborhood across Guam. They wanted us to cover the NDAA, so I'm going to go ahead and head into it. Our FY26 National Defense Authorization Act contains concrete, time-bound provisions that will create work and strengthen community resilience here on island. Key items include $105 million for military housing recovery and construction, authority for joint projects with the Guam Power Authority, up to $30 million, direction to release an unclassified Lincoln Laboratory assessment of missile defense impact so local leaders can lead and plan with facts. And finally, a one-year notification requirement before any permanent nuclear reactor placement. These are statutory requirements, authorities, that funding signals and reporting expectations that agencies must follow. Now, why this matters to contractors? These provisions create procurement pathways, MILCON opportunities, and studies that will shape contracting needs and timelines. But funding and directives only deliver value if we have the workforce, permitting, and of course, local contracting capacity to execute them. Labor access remains a top priority that we hear from GCA, from our industry partners every day. H-2B workers keep projects on schedule. H-1B professionals fill critical gaps in healthcare, energy, and technical roles that support both community and defense needs. Congressman Moylan has taken direct action, including formal letters to our Secretary of Homeland Security and our Secretary of Labor, requesting fee protections, implementation clarity, and enforcement practices that reflect Guam's unique workforce realities. As we speak, actually, Congressman Moylan is meeting with fellow members of Congress to push for H-2B solutions that recognize Guam's unique needs. We are coordinating with the USCIS and DHS to monitor implementation and to identify practical steps that reduce administrative burdens on employers. Put simply, labor access is national security access. Without workers, timelines slip and mission readiness suffers. We also hear the permitting frustrations, as was noted earlier. The NDAA pairs oversight with practical contracting reforms, including assessments of design-build and progressive design-build methods, and study of public-private partnerships for housing. Congressman Moylan will press federal partners to use contracting authorities in ways that increase local participation, reduce administrative burdens, and ensure federal dollars flow through Guam businesses wherever feasible. The Lincoln Lab unclassified summary and GAO implementation directives are intended to give local leaders the information needed to plan infrastructure and workforce responses. The NDAA also directs briefings on ship repair capacity, power grid, MILCON opportunities, and Civ Mill projects that require coordination with the Governor and Joint Region Marianas. Those briefings are designed to produce MILCON requests and programmatic actions that translate into real contracting opportunities. We are not focused only inside the fence. Building up the community outside the fence is essential to long-term success, and it ties directly into the Guam Contractor Association business. Congressman Moylan has advanced initiatives that strengthen the broader workforce pipeline, including progress just recently on tuition equity for our students. His bipartisan bill, H.R. 6472, passed the Education and Workforce Committee last week and would expand tuition equity for residents of U.S. territories, helping our students access in-state tuition rates at colleges and universities that receive federal assistance. That matters because it reduces barriers to higher education, lowers student debt, and brings back our skilled graduates who can fill the professional and technical roles here at our home. This work on education complements investments in trades and workforce training. As mentioned in the House Committee hearing also last week, GCA's Trades Academy is a perfect example of how outside the fence investments create immediate local benefits. I understand that the Adkins Family Foundation will be presenting a generous contributions to the Trade Academy today, and on behalf of everyone, thank you. That kind of private sector support directly strengthens the pipeline of skilled workers who will build Guam's projects. When students can afford college or choose the trades with strong local support, Guam gains the workforce needed to execute MILCON, energy, and infrastructure projects without unnecessary delay. Congressman Moylan's office is actively working to convert these directives into projects and into jobs. We are engaged with federal and local partners to move from authorization to implementation, to ensure that agencies understand Guam's priorities and to press for contracting approaches that allow local firms to compete. We will continue to provide updates to the Guam Contractors Association and to convene forums where contractors can review draft scopes, ask questions, and prepare to bid. As evidenced in our constant communications, we value your expertise. Please continue to engage with us. Congressman Moylan's office is committed to turning these statutory wins into local jobs and lasting community benefits. Finally, thank you again for your resilience, your partnership. We will keep working steadily and collaboratively to make sure Guam benefits first from the investments made here. Sizos Masi and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Danelta.
Yes.
Very good. First time?
It is my first time.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I'm very nervous. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, good morning, half a day. And if I forget, because I'm sure I'm going to nervous as hell, Merry Christmas, okay? And, after listening to the Lieutenant Governor and then Siska and then the presentation by Congressman Moylan, what else am I going to say, okay? But I guess I was asked to be able to speak on Bill 133, which was, thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. He and I have actually had discussions about Bill 133. He's hoping and he's waiting for that bill to be able to get on to the governor's office so that he can sign it. We just got to make sure the governor's gone, okay? So that we can do that in tandem, okay? Because there's one thing I recognize about the lieutenant governor. When he becomes acting governor, I have to become acting lieutenant governor, okay? He doubles my workload, okay, during that time. Just, you got to be here and you got to be here. I said, do it on your own, guy. Come on. But that said, it's Bill 133, first off. It's as was the Lieutenant Governor had made mention to it this morning. It's simply a bill to be able to help to move the process forward with regards to the applications, okay, on permitting. Okay, and this is a bill that is not my brainchild. The only brainchild that I had was to get subject matter experts and those individuals in the industry to be able to get together. Let's talk about the issues. What are some of the concerns in being able to move forward? This was a brainchild of that discussion. The only thing I'm going to take credit for is I'm the first name on the bill. Okay, but the language in the bill actually came from you, and I want to thank you very much for that. And so what the bill basically does, very simply, it provides a quicker avenue and an alternative avenue to be able to deal with the delays that are currently occurring in the application or in the permitting processes. Primarily in the area of being able of land use and being able to get your project started. And it's a default opportunity that it gives, first off, a timeline. It says, look, if the application is before this regulatory agency or the agency that needs to be able to process the application or the permit, you got 90 days. And if you can't do it if it's not done within 90 days, there's a default provision that allows for the application or for the permit to be conditionally approved, and provided that the process still continues, but conditionally approved so you can move forward with your project. It further provides an opportunity to be able to hire a third-party consultant to assist the entity in being able to review the process so that it can pass. Of course, at the expense of the applicant. But this was put together for the purpose, again, as a result of the conversations that we have in a commission that I am impaneled, speaker. My colleagues thought that it was best for me not to have a oversight on any committee, so I got bored and I created my own commission. And one of the things was getting, again, the private sector, the companies together. It's just what seems to be slowing our business down. Obviously, permitting processes is one issue. Of course, the other one is the procurement process, and that's a continuing conversations that we're going to be that we're having. Thirdly, is while we recognize that there may be the bogged down may be technical, and there may be a number of reasons as to why applications and permits are not done in a timely manner, so that we can have our employees and our workforce start to move on projects. Just as important is making sure that the agencies, the regulatory agencies, have the personnel necessary to be able to do the reviews and the processes necessary. And so another thing that we're looking at is being able to, as we develop the workforce, to be able to move processes through, we need to also recognize and be mindful of the workforce needed to be able to deal with the applications and to do the processing. And so I'm working with our education partners so that we can open up apprenticeships, if you will, in the area of getting people trained up in those areas that we're lacking to be able to move on these processes, so that they have a pool of individuals that can be utilized to help to move these applications and these processes forward. So these are the things that we're working on. And the great thing about it is that's all I have to say, because I have noticed that in my schedule it says after I talk, you got a break. Okay? So with that, that's in a nutshell as to what this process is for. It is currently in committee, Bill 133. I want to thank you. The Guam Contractors Association has actually helped in the markup of the bill. The bill is going to be ready for the January session, which I am calling near the end of January 26th to be exact. And hopefully, and I'm surely, after talking to some of my colleagues, it appears it's going to pass, so that we can get it to the lieutenant governor's desk when he's the acting governor, or he can convince the governor to go ahead and sign it, okay? And we can sit next to her so that it can be signed. So thank you very much. Okay?
Thank you, Speaker. Very good. Short, quick. Does he have any questions? Yes. You just speak loud. You're a former Marine.
Originally, the commission was going to flesh out all of the rules and regulations, but the antiquated rules that don't anymore. I don't really know anything this will cover the review of rules and regulations that we don't. How we're going to put sort of a workaround to get the learning process forward. It's still a consolidation that we're talking about.
Right. No, this is, and this is but one portion of this. There's still the process that we have in the commission, which is that was been paneled, to be able to look at the different regulations, laws, okay, statutes that pertain to business activity. Thank you very much, Charlie, for the question. And to give you why I brought this about 4 years ago, I introduced legislation that is now law that was the Criminal Law and Procedure Review Commission. And what it was to review the statutes and the procedures and the laws that pertain to crime. Your robberies, your burglaries, and then the judicial process necessary to ensure that when judiciously it can be adjudicated properly. In the Guam Code Annotated, there are two titles. There are basically two different titles that cover criminal law procedure and statutes. Title 8 and Title 9. Title 8 is procedure, Title 9 is the laws, the criminal laws. It's taken 4 years to be able to be, the judiciary have, and over the last 4 years, painstakingly gone through the two different titles to be able to address and identify those proportions of the law that are antiquated, that are as a result of new case law. There got to be some adjustments, as well as to tighten up some of the language in some of our criminal laws so that it can become relevant. Recently, I introduced a piece of legislation which is about 140 pages thick, which has some recommended changes to the criminal law portion of our statutes, but only covered 80% of Title IX. They have not touched Title 8 yet because of all the laws that are necessary to be able to be reviewed. That's the criminal law and procedure review. With business law, there are 8 titles in the Guam Code Annotated that relate to business law. So this is but a start and a painstaking process to be able to start to review the 8 titles that pertain to business law. I'll leave you with this. Did you know that on Guam, if you have a cashmere goat or Angora sheep, I've checked Amazon, they don't sell it, but you may want to get it because according to Guam law, if your dog comes to my house and kills my cashmere goat or Angora goat, I can go to your house and kill your dog and you. Ouch. Another law, which I told my wife she owes me thousands of dollars for, is that seduction has got a penalty up to $1,000 per event. My wife owes me not a lot of money. Okay?
Eric, delete those pictures.
Okay? And thirdly, that according to statute, dueling is still legal on Guam. And that if you win in a duel, you are responsible for taking care of the livelihood of the wife and the children of the person that you dueled against and lost. That's in your titles of the books. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Speaker. Yeah, there's one other thing we got to do, Eric, we got to take that picture. Lieutenant Governor shared some information that she was supposed to share, but I have some other information that might be very fruitful and beneficial to you and educational. But let me get that going. I had a question. One of our members brought up a very good question about tax. And we sent the question to the director and the person in charge of enforcement. Is she here? Is Carolyn here, by the way? No? Good. All right. Because it's what she shared. And the question is, if a contractor from off-island wins a project in Guam and in any of the military bases, are they exempt from paying any GRT and BPT? This answer was actually shared some time ago. We had Reverend Tax do some presentations with the Chamber, also with the GCA, and it's just a kind reminder that the answer to the question, a short, very short answer is no. Absolutely not. A contractor who wins a project in Guam is considered the primary contractor, who according to tax law is responsible for paying the BPT or GRT. Should a primary contractor contract with a subcontractor for services on Guam, the prime is still responsible for the entire BPT or GRT, while the subcontractor takes the exemption. When a contract exists for work on Guam, earned in Guam, BPT/GRT must be reported and paid regardless of location in Guam, whether it be in the military installation or not, inside base or not. Period. The prime contractor is ultimately responsible for paying that BPT or GRT. And again, this was shared over the course of several years, but still to this day, and it was just last week, the question was asked. And again, it's the same answer. Reverend Tax has a nice picture diagram of how it works. I couldn't find it. I had requested for them to give an update up to 2024 or 25, and we'll share it. And by the way, all the slides here today will be shared to all those on the email. Now, another question, very similar, with basically the same answer. If a contractor from off-island wins a project in Guam and in any of the military bases and hires a local subcontractor or a local contractor, which is considered a subcontractor, who is responsible for paying the GRT? She answered it in the first question. As stated above, pursuant to GCA 11 GCA section 26202, a primary contractor, as defined in the law, is responsible for reporting and paying the BPT. Simply put, the prime contractor is responsible. Okay, and this has been repeated again. I'm going to repeat it again, and we're going to repeat it again in 2026, because I'm sure the questions are going to come up again. Oh. Thank you, Trevor. You're awesome. That's the picture I was just talking about earlier. But I had also asked that they renew it up to 2025 or going into 2026, because I'm sure some people will say, hey, that's an old picture. I believe that was back in 2022, I believe.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to do a quick briefing on H2. We did have the Congressman's office come and do some NDA stuff. I'm going to cover how it relates to H2, though, but next slide, please. Oh. Okay, wait. Okay, current H2 numbers. Right now, we've got 5,483 H2s. That's pretty much in the higher end. We've been ranging about 5,000 for the past year or two. We did dip down into the 4,000s, and we were kind of concerned, but we're back up to about 5,500. I expect we're going to be about 5,500 coming in January, and kind of stay around that number for a little bit. See, I can't read my stuff. Current program. Get rid of this. Current program status. It's not much more different from the last time I gave a briefing to GCA, but right now our approvals are going through pretty smoothly. We don't see any denials that are systemic. The denials that we have seen come from immigration cases that maybe weren't filed, were filed with some defects or maybe filed late. We have been seeing some lates go through that have resulted in requests for evidence or denials. But for the most part, USCIS has been pretty friendly to us, so that's a good thing. We do have our special exemptions in place still until 2029. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future slides. It is still difficult to get so right now our exemptions cover contracts that have a nexus to the military realignment. For construction, almost everything is connected to the military realignment as far as we've gotten it with our NDAA exemptions right now. So home building can be done. I appreciate Siska's talk on home building. It was very informative for me. I like to see those volumes. I think those volumes could come up. We aren't seeing a lot of contractors doing home building. And I don't know if it's the myth that, we can't bring in H2s for outside the fence. That's absolutely not true. It hasn't been true for years. If you want to build homes, you can build homes. You'll get approvals for your H2s. What we do have trouble getting H2s in is non-contractual work. So let's say that, I'll use an example. I won't say who it is because he's probably here somewhere, but let's say that you've got a business where you do repair work. Maybe it's construction type repair, maybe it's like mechanical work or something, but you don't have actual contracts. It's like somebody calls you, I need a repair done on, a roof or a door or something like that. Those are difficult to get H2s for. We can't really bring in those types of workers. And when people ask me, I say, well, the H2 program is not meant to be the fix-all for everything. We've got to develop U.S. workers. We've got to, as contractors, you've got to engage in apprenticeships. You've got to hire locals. H2s are only meant for those skilled positions that we can't find workers for. Just because people aren't applying for construction jobs, I know it sounds tough, but just because they're not applying doesn't mean that you as the contractor has done enough. You've got to make those jobs, attractive, give benefits, do something, but you can't expect to get H2s free and clear for like labor jobs or non-skilled jobs. It's just not going to happen. We have to protect those jobs for our locals. So do your best to develop, and the Trades Academy is so important because those guys that go to the Trades Academy are getting those basic skills that you need for those labor type jobs. Overstays. So we did look at our overstay rates. I updated it yesterday, and we did go down from like a 1.5% overstay rate to actually 0.096, which is very good for us. So as far as immigration is concerned, we're a safe destination. We don't have a lot of overstays. I looked, and at least AI told me. AI told me that the national combined overstay rate for the U.S. is 2.5 or 2.05. That's combined H1s, L1s, and H2s. I hope AI was correct. If not, then don't blame me. Labor violations. So we have seen some labor violations recently, but that just comes with the increase in numbers of workers that we have. We're going to see increases in labor violations, especially if we're doing our job and we're out there really doing our audits and stuff. So we have seen some wage cases. It kind of gets around word of mouth. We don't really publicize these, we're not in the business of, we want to correct behavior and make sure people are operating correctly. We're not out there to trash people in the media and stuff like that. So typically, unless it's a really big case, you're not going to see us, tooting our horn, in the media. But there have been some, mostly involving wages. We have had 0 human trafficking cases, thank God. And I haven't seen any real systemic abuses. Like I said, we do have really good enforcement now. I've got all of my 15 staff trained up to go out in the field, so it's a all hands on deck thing. Each one of us have a job, but I can also mobilize a big force if I need to. Next. Okay, 2026 NDAA. So the Congressman's office talked about that. All I can really say is that there was nothing for Guam relating to H2s in the 2026 NDAA. We did see a simple extension in the Senate version that didn't go through, so it looks like we're going to have to shoot for next year. Interestingly, there is a provision in the 2026 NDAA, which it hasn't passed yet, but it involves Wake Island. And when you search for Guam in the 2026 NDAA, this thing pops up. Basically what it says is if workers are admitted to Guam or the CNMI, then they can work in Wake Island. Interestingly, though, there's a provision that says if those workers go anywhere else in the U.S., their visas are canceled. I don't know of any flights from Wake Island from Guam or CNMI. So it looks like they would have to go to Hawaii and then get their visa canceled, and then so there's a little bit more work, I think, that needs to be done in this provision. We didn't have anything to do with this provision. So 2027 NDA is what we're working with now. Like LT said, there was at one time there was 4 different provisions out there, 4 different versions. There's not really 4 anymore. It's more, we have kind of a military-centered approach, and then we've got a more expansive approach. I know Governor's pushing for the more expansive approach, but what we are looking for right now, so we have our exemptions till 2029. When that happens, we're going to have to get new exemptions authorized for the HCAP, which is nationwide, and then our temporary need exemption. So there are some proposals out there to possibly maybe, instead of tying it to the military realignment, which is the buildup, which is our DIPRI program, right, Movement of Marines, maybe tie it to an Indo-PACOM defense strategy type of thing. I don't know, that's some wordings being played around with that, but that really makes sense. If we're going to keep our existing exemptions, we don't want to tie it to the buildup because the buildup's finishing, so we want to expand that. There is push in Congress to, keep it military centrist, because it's the National Defense Authorization Act, right? So it's got to be relating to national defense. What we want to do on the local side is expand the program to include other definitions of temporary, and that's the problem right now with our H2 program is the definitions of temporary are very narrowly tailored. You can get, like, for instance, I'll use Animos, the restaurant over there at Sandcastle. They brought in a cook to open up their restaurant. It was like a one-time kind of occurrence, and they were able to justify that and do that with regular, I call it vanilla H2, right? Regular H2 without any exemptions or anything like that. Most military construction, all construction, is using our NDA exemptions right now. And those are working. But what we want to do, one provision, the military-centric one, kind of has a sunset of 2035, at least that's the number we're playing around with right now. We want a more permanent program. So that way you guys as contractors have, you can plan out 5 years, 10 years. And we also want to be able to, having this other category, support other non-construction things, like there's additive manufacturing coming in, right? 3D printing, we want to be able to support that. Maybe a new industry comes in. Maybe somebody wants to start building, I don't know, drones or something here. You might need to bring in expertise from outside of the country to start that up. Now, the one thing with Guam DOL is we're very, what would the word be? We like to integrate our apprenticeship program and our job training programs with the H2s. As far as I'm concerned, if you're bringing in H2s, you've got trainers. So you should have a local working along with that H2. Let him train up, because when that H2 leaves, then that local can have the, the skills and experience that, that can be passed on. What else? And then another track is doing both the proposals together, and that kind of makes sense. Because if one falls to the side, then we've got the other one. So one thing is sure, something's going to happen because there's no way we can have no H2s. We experienced that in 2016 when H2s went down to 0. We were able to get all of these exemptions in place. So I'm not worried about us not having H2s. I'm worried about us having a little dip while we try to work it out. But at this point, I think everything's okay. Now, all these strategies need, why am I bringing this up? Because at some point, we're going to have to go to DC. At some point, we're going to need to bring someone other than Greg Massey and Dave Della Sola. So I'd like to put it out there to the Contractors Association. Have your expert ready, Get one person, maybe Joe, I don't know. Have that one person that knows as much as I do about H2. I'm willing to train up and bring up the skills of anybody that wants to do it. But we do need to go to DC and have a one Guam voice. It can't just be Department of Labor's pushing this. It can't just be the governor's office is pushing it. I need someone from Contractors Association. I need the Chamber's door knocking committee to go with us. I need whatever we can get, and we need to kind of orchestrate it together. But that's more to come next year in 2026. We do want to push an overarching theme that having a strong economy on Guam is a national defense priority, okay? And that kind of ties into some of the stuff that's happening with the H1 program right now. We need these things called national interest exemptions, and we need to be able to prove it. Easy to do for construction, harder to do for other industries, right? I mean, if somebody says, oh, I need a, design engineer for something, and if you can't really point that to housing construction or a military contract, then how do you get a national interest exemption? We're working with the immigration attorneys, Department of Labor, although we do H2 only right now, Guam Department of Labor, we are working with the immigration attorneys to try to support those efforts to get national interest exemptions. How that's happening, we're still working it out, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it. Don't call my office asking for I don't issue national interest exemptions. So that's done through the federal government, but we will support it when we can. Of course, if you come to us with some crazy idea and I can't support it, then don't get upset when we say no. Workforce housing. So we've been talking about that for a while. I'm glad to say that there is finally Bill 240-38 that just got announced recently. We're happy that that bill came in. That's basically going to allow for temporary workforce housing facilities or barracks in an M1 zone as a permitted use. So you wouldn't have to go get the GLUC approval if this bill passes. But sometimes when you're driving to work and that heavy metal music is playing real loud, you get ideas in your head, right? And the idea I had, which I'm gonna put out there because it can't always come from Department of Labor. You guys are the industry. But I would suggest, and when we see it says suggestion, maybe ask the legislature to amend that bill and allow for, if you're gonna say temporary workforce housing or barracks is allowed in an M1 zone as a permitted use, why not open up other zones, but have that subject to GLUC approval? So that way, if somebody tries to open up a barracks in the middle of League One Terrace, then GLUC can say, no, that's not, But what happens if there's let's say an agricultural property that's right there next to the sewer, ready, it's just zoned wrong. I mean, we should be able to say, okay, submit that to the Land Use Commission, let them approve it, But right now, and I'm not a land management person, but right now the way I see it would be, it's like GLUC, if you put it out there, they're going to say, well, you're going to have to go do a zone change, so what, 2 years, 3 years later, the projects are done already. So just a suggestion. I'm not going to push it myself, but if you guys want to, I think the public hearing is going to be coming up soon. Why am I saying this? Because we are very sensitive to the housing crisis that's going on right now. All we're hearing about is there's lack of housing on Guam, right? That's in the media all the time. And we do recognize that H2s are in a bunch of these apartments. I kind of wrote the housing rule for H2 once upon a time back in the early 2000s, and we never envisioned We allowed for apartments because there were smaller contractors that didn't want to go out and build a barracks. You know, why should you? If I'm going to bring in 6 guys, why would I go build a barracks to house the 6 guys? You should be able to put them in a commercially available apartment, and it's suitable. Nobody thought that someone's going to bring in 200 workers and put all of them in apartments. That's what, 40 apartments? Yeah, so caution. And then the hotels have kind of taken up some of the slack after COVID, and tourism's down. So that was good for the hotels, but I'm going to just telegraph it. We're going to start, expect that we're going to start tapering off on allowing housing plans that involve hotels and involve apartments. I'm just saying it's going to happen eventually. The more pressure we see on the housing market, the more we're going to tell contractors, hey, you got to go out and build temporary workforce housing. Either that or you got to get together. Now, not to say it hasn't been built. I really want to give kudos to Pacific Rim. They're building a new barracks. PFM and LMS, that group built barracks. There's several out there that are building their own barracks. They're smart because they're not going to be affected when we turn around and say, hey, we're not going to approve a housing plan with an apartment for you. I don't want to tell contractors that, I don't want to do that because we're trying to help the industry. But at the same time, we can't let it come to a point where the public's going to start turning against, the contracting industry because people are living on, in tents, like I don't know if you guys have ever been down to like Waianae area in Hawaii. It's all tents, and if you go talk to those people, they're all working people, but they're living in tents on the beach. The minute we see that, you're going to see me starting to say, nope, go talk to Pacific Rim and see if you can rent barrack space. Go talk to Mr. Ho at Cortec and see if... Oh, there you go, see? I'm not going to market for you guys, okay? But leave your cards and I'll tell contractors that are asking. No, seriously, if you guys have barrack space, you can let us know. And then other contractors, now some contractors have different things, like some don't want to mix their workforces with others. Some are willing to rent barrack space. I tell anybody that's building a barracks, if you're going to build for 100 workers that you're going to bring in, build out for 200 so that you have capacity of your own, or you can rent it out to other companies and kind of recoup your investment. But I'm not a business person, so anyway. And that's it for me. Any questions? Please ask questions for legal advice.
Any questions for Greg?
So you don't have to pay your immigration lawyer. I can give you.
Greg, I have a question.
No.
Do you know how many total H2 plus U.S. citizen workers involved? What's your total?
H2 plus U.S.?
Correct, in the construction.
So our current. Bro, I didn't bring my report with me. No, approximately, so our current CES report that our BLS puts out, I think there's about 4,000 craft workers, U.S. craft workers right now. Now, those are all different, all the way from laborers up to, and that's not including office staff. And then we've got the 4,500 H2s, so about roughly 9,000 is our capacity right now.
What about that law, or if it's a law, the 50% rule for apartments where you can house H2s in an apartment?
What about it?
Do you know? I mean, could you share on that?
That's a land management law. They're sitting over there. Yeah, well, that's a very confusing law. I mean, basically what it says is, like right now the hotels, they're housing, some of the hotels are housing H2s. What the law says is you can't have more than 50% of your capacity in the building. If you have more than 50%, then it's considered temporary workforce housing, and then you're subject to M1 zone and all of the OSHA requirements. If you're less than the 50%, then you're not considered workforce housing. You'd just be considered a hotel or an apartment or something like that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to bringing in Taiwan, but one of the questions that was asked is people that want to bring their emissions here instead of over here. So they were asking about the visas and everything that's happening on the income side, but on the practical side, how how is there any exemptions that they get filed for?
So, how do I do this? The caveat is I'm not giving legal advice, okay? So, that being said, so I can give you the general version, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. So, no, okay, so typically engineers are brought in under H1s, and that's the one of the big controversy right now with the $100,000 fee. We know from guidance now, finally there's guidance that they will waive that $100,000 if a national interest exemption is issued. So it would really, the devil's in the details on what your exact situation is, but H1 is not the only category that you can bring engineers under. You could bring them in under an H2, you know, with all the exemptions that we have. The only problem is the durations are different and the usage is different. So, I mean, you could bring an engineer under an H2, you're only going to get probably a 1-year approval, extendable up to 3 years, and then he's got to go. Whereas with an H1, it's typically a 3-year approval, extendable up to 6 with a path to a green card. So it really depends. And then if your engineer is from the company and it's a sister company, you might be able to do an L1 if it's a management position. So there's different options, but each one has pluses and minuses, and that's where the immigration attorneys come in to kind of advise you what's the best for your business model. I can give you an easy one, but it's not. So, like, let's say that your engineer is working on a DIPRI project, you know, Camp Bloss project. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're going to say that's in the national interest because it's a military project. But let's say that maybe they're working on a home development. You might be able to get that passed, you know, and that's where the immigration attorney is going to come in and kind of finesse that and put in all, you know, as many positive things in their write-up as possible. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you guys a lot.
Thank you for that, Greg. Round of applause. Where's Eric?
Thank you, Joe. Several days ago, we were contacted by the James and Rosita Atkins Foundation that they had a check to present for scholarships. This is the third or maybe the fourth check already that they've presented to us already. We've received over $60,000 that went, not to us, but to our students as part of scholarship presentations. And so I'd like to invite Alexa Atkins to come join me up here. She's representing the Atkins Foundation and had contacted us. Thank you. Go ahead, say a few words.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name's Alexa Atkins. I know some of you. I am married to James Atkins, who is running East West Rental right now, so he apologizes he can't be here today. I'm here representing my father and my mother-in-law, Jim and Rose Atkins. They're the ones who started this foundation, and over the years we've been giving it to high school students for them to further their college education. But in the recent years, we really wanted to promote our young generation here who are furthering their education in the trades and to continue to promote the trades development here on the island of Guam. So thank you, Bert, for always being a great partner with us and for always helping us to reach these kids. And we always want to promote the Trades Academy and your students, and we look forward to many more years of supporting you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
God bless you.
Thank you. A backstory. She had a couple of HVAC techs come up to your house to work on it, and one of them actually goes, I got one of the scholarships earlier. And it touched their heart, it touched our heart. Thank you so very, very much.
Honored. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that? Yeah. Bill, do you want to join us up here?
Michelle Lastimosa with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. Thank you, Michelle. Come on up.
Thank you, everybody. And I just want to thank the Guam Contractors Association for inviting us to the table to have this very important discussion. I'm joined today by Deputy Administrator Glenn Nicholas and Chief Engineer Peter Bautista. And I just want to emphasize that the work that we do is purposeful and it's important. with 14 statutes and 21 rules and regulations that are meant to protect our environment, air, land, water, our natural resources, we have a tough job to do. And despite what the gentleman said earlier, the rules that are in existence are the rules that we have to enforce. We're not unreasonable. If the rules don't apply to you, if it seems outdated, we certainly take that into account. But unfortunately, that's our industry. That's our job, is to enforce rules and regulations and statutes that currently exist. And so while they may seem antiquated, we are working on updating those rules and regs. And sorry a lot and not sorry a lot, but if those rules still apply to you, then those are the rules that we have to enforce, unfortunately. And I know that we only have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna turn it over to Chief to do a rapid fire on our permitting rules. And hopefully that gives you a better understanding of our point of view and where we stand as a regulatory agency. And then hopefully we'll have enough time for questions and answers, because I know there's always a lot. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chief.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. Pete Bautista, Chief Engineer, Guam EPA. I just started around 6 months ago or less. And so this is a very challenging job that I'm holding, and I'm trying my best to stay with it for the island. I came back from being away for almost 30 years, working for the federal government, USDA Conservation Service. I retired from that career in 2022, and then I started working again for one of the counties in Washington State, getting my licensure back and getting into practice when I decided to come home to be with my dad, who's still around, and family. So anyway, that's myself. Please, I welcome everyone to introduce yourself to me so I can get acquainted with the industry. And I appreciate the invite today. So I'm supposed to make it really fast. And this is a presentation to discuss some of our metrics this past year, some of the challenges you guys encounter, we encounter, some tips and some avoidance tips to stay away from violations and enforcement. So when we talk about applicable permits that the EPA, undertakes, this is the list of them. Everything from building, grading, occupancy, lots of military CGGS permits, clearing and grading. We also deal with the MILCOM projects on the design phase throughout. And then we have our water resources well drilling permits, our dry well injection permits. Well, of course, we have our air and land section and their air control permits. And then we also work with the Army Corps on in-water work with water quality certification permits, if you will. So our metrics, or what we have accomplished this past year, is short from astonishing, or not short from astonishing, in my opinion, because I came from a small county in Washington State that is minuscule to what we do here in this island. And it's mostly because of the industry and tourism and military. Guam is a gem. It's got a lot of investments, a lot of good real estate opportunities and so forth. Anyway, moving from the left to the right, alphabetical, aggregate import, that's a MILCOM project to improve Lake Cabras Island. We're bringing imported aggregate from around the world to build up Cabras, the jetty, and also within the bases, the Polaris and Sumai bays. We do ARC, application reviews, and so we're working with the Land Management ARC Committee in zone changes and conditional variance requests and the like. So a lot of that has to do with housing and development in general. Building permits, we work with DPW and the other agencies in getting those reviewed and approved. Clearing and grading by far is actually one of our actually building permits is one of the big, numbers or the big things we do, as well as clearing and grading and stockpiling permits, CGGS, and the number of, for building a couple and a half hundred and CGGS almost 100 a year. We have 3 years in comparison in this histogram. We have DOD projects, we have EIS reviews and so forth and so on. All the way down to W, which is wetland delineations and well operating permits, well drilling permits and what have you. So that's just to show you the breadth and the depth of what we do. And then this is by category, by shops, by sections, by divisions, our frequency, our number of permits we handle year to year. So then we're going into the topic of challenges that we and the contractors both in our reality deal with. And obviously one of the worst or one of the common ones is incomplete permit apps. So that ties up time, obviously. You're missing your erosion control plan, your EPP is incomplete, things like that. You haven't applied for a MPDS permit if it exceeds 1 acre for US EPA requirements, things like that. So we work with the applicant back and forth to resolve those things, and unless you submit a complete package, we're not going to complete our reviews, unfortunately. Violations, of course, nobody likes violations, neither do you, because you're going to have to deal with it and pay for it and mitigate it and restore your broken permit issues. So then unsatisfactory design submissions. So when it's kind of really jarbled and convoluted, then it becomes tedious and complicated to understand, to review, and to approve. Permit misunderstandings, lapse in permit coverage. In other words, our permits are good for 12 months. After 12 months, you have to reapply. And it usually is simpler the second time through, because you got the checklist and you just got to refresh it. And then communications between prime and subs, obviously. There's breakdowns, off-island, on-island, realities, and so there's issues with that. And so the plan for success, best chance for approval, first review, of course, that's academic, that's a very optimistic goal, but nevertheless, errors and omissions place applications back in the queue. So when we put your thing on hold because of, inadequate or incompleteness or whatever, it's going to be on hold and it's going to wait at the back of the queue, unfortunately. Large commercial Milcom reviews require lots of time, obviously, and the blocks of time are hard to handle or hard to find. The best approach is a complete application, of course, and a correct design. It goes without saying. The top causes for permit delays, incomplete, we said that before, and then, so these are great examples. Missing basis of design, erosion control plans for drainage calcs, for example. Inadequate sizing of BMPs, lack of BMPs. No permits, MPDS, US EPA wise, not included. That hangs everything up because you got to deal with the feds first before we move forward. And then, cert letters or agreements on waste disposal and also for other things are missing. And then differing plan information provided, missing plans and like. Preventing delays, of obviously, the best advice is to have a complete set of plans and basis of design provided as backup. You know, the design report, the design calcs. And we're not asking for everything, just the storm and stormwater drainage plans, temporary and permanent, grading plans, and utility plans. For architectural plans, we're looking at on floor plans sources of contamination to the wells and to the sewerage and water systems. And then for plumbing, we're looking at all the kitchenware and the grease traps and those things. So pointers, we want your plans that's submitted for storm water drainage calcs sealed by a PE engineer, not by a draftsperson or a technician or somebody that thinks they know what they're doing, but it's required by law. It's complicated. Our stormwater drainage manual is complicated. You know, I mean, there are guys that can deal with it better than engineers sometimes, but we require a license stamp on it. And then, like sediment basin sizing, that's straight out of the manual. A minimum requirement per acre basis is 5,500 cubic feet per acre. I mean, that's like a low-hanging fruit. That's a slam dunk, but lots of people don't even know that, and they're giving us temporary erosion control plans, and they're just making stuff up. And then we also now require the ECS, the erosion sedimentation control training out of the academy for your personnel that are in charge or responsible for your plans to be provided in the submittals. So the MPDS permit I talked about with USCPA, that's that. Anything over an acre threshold is a requirement. You can't piecemeal the project. And then we want to see your NOI as part of your submittal. We want to see your SWPP, the Soil Water Prevention Protection or Pollution Plan. We want to see that. That's part of that submittal for the MPDS permit as part of your submittal. And we want to see the final approval from USCPA approving that. Just an email. Keeping you guys out of trouble, honestly, because when the feds flex, it's out of our control, and you're responsible. So we're trying to work together with that process in our reviews. So here's a good example of a plan submittal for a drainage plan. You got the highlighted drainage areas and the directional arrows for your drainages, your drainage features, your discharge, your pretreatment locations, what have you. And on the right side is like the BOD or the basis of design, your hydraulic comps that support that. Of course, this is just an example. It's a lot more complicated. We don't want a one-sheeter necessarily, unless it's just like for, a lay-down yard, say for example, with the sediment control basin, temporary one. It's probably going to be this simple, but for something else, it's going to be very complicated, I mean. So preventing delay trades, tips, education is always, key. So the academy, Guam Trades Academy, has a sediment control course, a training certification. That's what we want in your EPP. Your responsible ECS person has to have that training certificate provided. We have the manuals, the stormwater manuals available, volumes 1 and 2, that kind of, are the design manuals for drainage and stormwater requirements for Guam. And then, then there's the GAR for soil erosion sediment control regs, the link, and that's the regs that we are following. So enforcement and compliance, of course, you want to avoid violations and enforcement that comes with. takes away from everyone's time, including yours and your investment. It requires money, time, resources. We'll have to drop our permits and address whatever enforcement violations we have to deal with. They're considered emergencies. They're our top priorities. And it takes a lot of time. Obviously, on the bottom bullet, one bad contractor loses GEPA review time for 20 or more MilCon size permits and 100 plus civilian permits. I just got involved with one, violation that I'm dealing with, and it's taken over. We're still in the beginning stages, but it's taken at least a month already of our time, our whole team's time. So that takes away from our review time. So penalties come with the enforcement, and this CAP public law that was recently passed in 2021 removes the cap. So we can fine you up to whatever we deem is necessary to address the compliance. And everything adds fast. We got, like Michelle says, we have lots of regs to cite citations or violations. So it's not a good place to be. That should have said, I'm sorry, not February 2025, but I think it was November or maybe this month, in October. Right, but we didn't issue our NOV until like 2 weeks later. But anyway, it was a November, October, something like that, and that was the deal. Avoiding enforcement. So we give out this very extensive permit letter to everyone, and it actually captures all of our regs and laws, and so it's an awesome comprehensive permit approval letter. It's kind of daunting, but honestly, if you just read it and you understand it, it'll keep you out of trouble. Like, it talks about all the conditions, like it's a 12-month expiration date for this permit. You need to have your things posted, your permit posted. You need to have your certified ECS guy on the job, things like that. And anyway, that's how to avoid enforcement or violations, rather, EPA. And then that's it. It's a lot. It's we're here to work with you all. Honestly, I was sitting with Tatu and the project on the violation here, having breakfast with him. I mean, we're not we don't look for enemies. We try to keep our regulations in check and keep our island safe. Only one beat on all these sections. And so I heard someone talking about, the law that's come in and play with the speaker's proposed bill, and his offer to start something with the Trade Academy on training reviewers. I welcome that. I've actually had experience working with third service providers, is what they call it in the federal government, where we contract our work out to the private industry since W's time as president. So we've been doing this for years. It can work, but at the same time, we want to avoid harming our delicate and balanced, staffing reviews and approvals and permits. We'll work with whatever process you have. We'll welcome in your resources and from the industry, please. But we're still going to maintain our statutes and regs. So thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Yes. Anybody with a question, or so we can get answers? Keep us here. Now's the time to ask, especially from the question. I do have a question. What is the average time on a project that is let's say, a $5 million project? What would be the time frame to go through?
Well, normally what we try to do is get things out, at least in my division, get things out no more than no more than a month.
Okay, wow.
From my section, from my division, but then there's airland and the other section. And it depends on the complexity of what we're talking about. Like MILCOM projects, we deal with from the onset, from the design, 35%, 60, and 90% stages. So once we approve that design, it should move. And when it doesn't, we move it for them because it's embarrassing. We're double dipping, we're double reviewing, and it's embarrassing.
And then that contract or that application gets pushed back.
If it's held up for inconsistencies or incompleteness, it gets held back. But we give you an email and we say, this is your problem, and list the problems.
Okay, great.
Call me back and submit these things, and then we'll go back on it. And we don't like saying, we're going to wait until we do 1,000 of these first. Once you get back to us, we respect your time, but we hold it until you get back to us, because we're not going to wait for nothing.
That was one of the issues brought up. I forgot when, about a year ago or two, that when the application was put into GCA, and GCA would come out and say, oh, there's an issue with your application, and it ends there because you're overwhelmed.
Right.
So you move forward, but then the contractor or subcontractor is wondering, okay, what part, which issue, and they're left to go through everything once again, trying to make sure which part of it.
We won't start from scratch.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you would share with the contractor, this is the problem, this item, here's your issue on this page, on this part of the plan, fix that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other question? So we could go to the picture, the photo? Where's that? Representative, and don't forget the picture, Eugene Mesa. Yeah.
Well, it's a half a day. Merry Christmas to you and your families. Today I will just be presenting NAFIC runs FY26 project work update and our AACP, which is the Exhilaration and Affordability Campaign plan that the AAD is really pushing to the industry. So I'll start off with the FY26 workload, talk about pre-award projects, and then post-award work in place, we call WIP, and I'll explain that a little bit. And then the AACP plan, which is the Exhilaration Affordability Campaign plan, and the 6 lines of effort that committee is pushing. So this is the pre-award projects that NAFIC Pacific published on their public website. And these are the list of projects for FY26 that are tracking to be awarded through NAFIC Pacific, and then NAFIC Neuronis executes the post-award construction through our field offices and our works. So if I could go through all of them, you would see a bunch of PI projects, some maybe MBA, and this is not just Guam, but this includes CNMI as well as Palau, and later on we'll have some app projects in the future. So you would have access to these slides, so I'm not necessarily go through every project. On the next slide, these are actually, we do execute some MILCONs here at NAFIC Marianas on island with our local staff. NAFIC Pacific has this thing called MILCON centralization, where they pretty much have dibs on all Navy MILCON for NAFIC. And so they have a huge staff, and we have a smaller staff, but we do execute a couple of MILCONs. Currently, we have one project that was on the street. I think it's did come in, P819. Some of you contractors would be familiar with it. It's 18 megawatts of power generation at Polaris Point. And then we also are working on an RP package for the D05 Guam Army National Guard Readiness Center. So those are the 2 locally ones that our team is currently working with our local Navy partners. We have CMPs or other projects called centrally managed projects. These are typically RM projects or repair and modernization projects at Naval Base Guam or at Camp Laws. particularly these ones are all at Navy-based Guam, and these can range anywhere from $5 million to $100 million plus. And so the ones that we're working on right now is the Aragata waterline project that goes from Route 16, kind of near where Guam, past Army National Guard, coming down from the Aragata Heights Reservoir and all the way up to where the Micronesian Wall intersection. So we're go to the overpass for the airport. So we're looking at replacing the old water line there. And then another project down at Flowers Point is a D-mill pure water plant. And then we also have a small project at Flowers Point. It's just repair their emergency repair facility. And then a large project at Apple Palms. If you guys are familiar with Apple Palms, kind of going towards Naval Magazine, along the old school on the right-hand side. We have plans to renovate the entire Apple Palms. This is all funded by Baymar funding that came through the disaster supplemental. And then in conjunction with that is the family housing conversion project that's also using Baymar funding. And then we have a variety of FSRM projects at NBG, equating to about $60 million, and a small amount of FSRM at Camp Loss for about $7.5 million. We'll actually be publishing our list of projects on NAFAC Maryland's public website. We're updating that. We posted last FY. We have an FY26 updated list that we be going online probably in the next couple of weeks. So just be on the lookout for that. It has to go through our PA office and get it published. But I have the list in my email. We just got to push it up through our PO and get that out. And I'll send a note and a link to Joe to spread out the word once that's published. And you can click on that link and get access to that, as well as NAFAC Pacific's list. So this is the post-award working place we call WIP. And this is projections going out from FY26 to FY20. Actually, I have numbers published here to 28. Anything beyond 28 is kind of, still unknown because of you got H2B impact, so that can impact the cost. But what WIP is basically contractors' invoices, from all the work they're doing. We use that as a metric at NAFAC Marianas enterprise-wide to predict workload, but also to use it as a metric to basically provide manpower to those projects in terms of construction management engineers and engineering technicians to do the inspections. So right now for FY26, we have about 1.9 billion. So 1.9 billion, so almost $2 billion average for the next 3 years. And that's a lot of work. This is the most WIP we've ever done as a NAFAC Marianas, but also enterprise-wide as NAFAC in CONES, we're contributing to that big pot of WIP. And so the workload is coming, the workload is here. A lot of contractors are posturing up, but this also includes projects. So Roy Oceana is the kind of the dark blue, the lower. That includes Sinamai, Yap, Palau, and all the other islands. So those are work that's still being developed by NAFAC Pacific, but our Roy Oceana. So Roy is basically our field offices for construction. We have one at Roy Guam Polaris. Some of you guys are tracking the P676 submarine pier project that's programmed for FY28. That's over a $1 billion project by itself. So that's tracking for award. So that's Roy Guam Polaris. We do have a Roy Guam North is up at Anderson that handles a lot of the Guam Defense System projects, as well as the communication or C4I projects at NCTS at Camp Ross. And then OICC Marine Corps Marianas was handling all the debris projects with the Marine Corps forces moving in. That one's being sunsetting next summer and being folded into NAFAC Marianas. So OICC MCM will be part of NAFAC Marianas. It will be called ROIC MCM. So OIC is kind of a larger, it has its own 06 command. When it becomes a ROIC, it just becomes one of our field offices. So they're shrinking, that program's sunsetting, and then we also have naval base Fiat Naval Base Guam, which handles some milcons, and that a lot of these Fiats are going to be converting to ROICs, and there's going, NAVFAC is at CNIC, which is the Command Navy Installation Command headquarters. They're going through this change right now with, we're calling Short C2, which is a command control change, where a lot of our NAVFAC employees are shifting to CNIC early next year in February. As a phase 1. So those are some changes that we're kind of going through right now. But that does affect the Fiats, which is our smaller field offices at the base that primarily handles your repair projects, your smaller base repair projects. They do some milcon depending on the area of the project. But yeah, we're talking 1.9 for FY26, 1.9 for FY27, and about a little over $2 billion of WIC for 28. I do have some numbers for 29 and 30. Those are just projections based on what's in the pipeline that we're anticipating to be programmed. A lot of this is subject to affordability as the prices do come in, and we, the Navy has to decide, or the Army, GS have to decide, or any of our customers have to decide what is, what can they afford and what can we de-scope. And I'll be going over covering the AACP of how do we bring costs down. So the next topic is the AACP. So earlier, I think it was March 28, the NAVFAC Marianas headquarters, or Admiral Vanderlei and Admiral Gray from CNIC, he's the 3-star admiral of the headquarters, CNIC headquarters, signed a joint letter. They called it the AACP, Acceleration According Campaign Plan. And what this entails is, we need to, the Navy as a whole needs to think and act differently. And to do this, they came up with 6 lines of effort. And I'll go through all 6, but I'm really going to talk about the 2 ones that are in red fonts. The first one, line of effort 1, is the minimum viable project, or MVP, and alternate construction methods. We feel that that's where the industry will make the biggest impact, as well as line of effort 2, lean design build. Lean design build, as you traditionally know, if you came from the industry, that we just call that the regular design build. But if you were bidding, our what we call regular design build, it's very prescriptive. We had a floor plan that was already set. We had the site ready. The orientation of the building already set. Room by room definitions of what those requirements are already set. We go lean design build. This is what industry, commercial industry and private industry is used to when we call lean design build. It's their regular design build, where we actually basically put less requirements in and have the contractor and their AE design team have more leverage and freedom to come up with their own proposed design and solution that will meet the requirements for that customer or for the government. Line of effort 3 is we call PASD, or programmatic approaches using standard designs. So that's basically for like your barracks or BQs, CDCs, just typical facilities that you'll find on a base. They would just try to adapt a standard design that came from headquarters, and we just tweak it and push it out to the contractor, and we have a good feel for that cost already. And then line of effort 4, innovation cradle. So this is where, and line of effort 4 and line of effort 5 kind of go together. We have our NAVFAC's sister command, X-Wing in Mentor, California. They leverage a lot of RTD type of prototyping, work with manufacturing companies or other companies, and they use this thing called other transactional authority, OTA. And we were trying to get some language to leverage milcon dollars to do an OTA for a housing project, but that hasn't gone through yet. But the idea is basically they use this OTA type of funding or authority, and they could go out and see what's out there in the industry and and bring it to a government project and maybe, and leverage like ACM. We're trying to see like what's out there, in terms of, in lieu of traditional construction construction methods like precast or cast in place type of construction methods, we're looking at lightweight steel or other type of materials that can be conducive to our environment, corrosive environment, as well as the typhoon strike type of materials that could be used for housing here in Guam and at a lower cost. The price of a unit cost for a standard house in Anderson Air Force Base that we're building right now would ranging about $1.8 million to as high as $2.4 million for a 3 to 4 bedroom house. Overall cost. So it's becoming unaffordable. So we're looking at ways to reduce that cost and maybe not do your traditional precast or cast in place in. And then there's a memo that the ASN, Assistant Secretary of the Navy, had put out where we can no longer build individual houses on base. We have to densify, so we have to build 6 stories up to about 6 stories, so mid-level type structures similar to what they have in Japan and Yokosuka. So that's kind of where they're going with now, with the amount of property that, and then just the cost, right? And so it'll be more like multifamily. And then the last one is statutory and regulatory enablers. So these are your FAR and EFAR, UFC types. I know I'm throwing acronyms out, but these are the regulatories and kind of laws and also regulations and stuff like that can be changed so that the Navy can build and go faster. So I'll focus on the ACP line of effort 1 and 2. This will be by slide. So line of effort 1, as I talked, was ACM, Alternative Construction Methods. And this is to establish the minimum viable project or MVP scope. And what that entails is at an early stage in the planning level, we are engaging with our AE partners and the customer or the resource sponsor or the project sponsor, and in some cases even the mission owner. And we are putting our heads together and saying, what is the minimum viable project scope that we can put in, and not, go play this and get the, just to meet mission. And look at other alternative construction methods out there that industry uses. It's proven industry, but it's not maybe adopted in our USCs or in our local MDACs. And the MDACs is basically our local standard for NAVFAC. And so this will entail an 06 officer or an SES level officer, even a flag officer, to sign off on the requirement and lock in that requirement. And any new changes that, even during construction or even during design, that comes up and they need to add scope, or they will need a flag officer's approval to change that scope. So the Navy's pretty serious about moving forward this AACP. And then what we talked about ACM is the non-traditional technologies, right? We're so used to cast in place here on the base, and we've been using precast concrete for quite some time, but we want to take it even further. Look at lightweight. We're not trying to build the 75-year solution or 50-year solution for a life cycle cost, of the building, the life cycle of the building. We're looking at sometimes a 15 to a 25, depending on the type of facility, as high as 25 to even 30-year solution. And we're just the Navy's just trying to buy time for the next 15 to 20 years. And they understand they got to take more risk. So we're looking at the housing solution to see what can be, the federal government is self-insured right now, so we could take risks, right? We could build a house that's lightweight concrete, lightweight steel, maybe a combination of some lightweight concrete, but see what's out there, and we are putting a project, kind of like a pilot project. I don't know if it's gonna go all the way through, but we're trying to get a package out to see what's out in the industry so that we can build some 20-unit townhomes on Cambridge Swamp to kind of pilot and test this ACM. But we're really reaching out to our industry partners to think outside the box and work with your A&E firms, your designers to propose something and try it out, right? And if it fails, you know, we want to make sure that true engineering design is taking into account your structural, your seismic, fire protection, and all that. Is still required. But there are some avenues to get some exemptions, UFC exemptions, and MDAX waivers through this process. Another one, but we're not going to jeopardize any fire, life, safety, and health through this process, right? And then the line of effort to is link design bill, as discussed earlier. This is for the DBIA. It's design build done right? Quotation marks. And this is, it's all gonna be performance-based statement of work. And we're gonna provide very, very minimal design in the RFP package. And we're gonna lean on our contractor and our industry partners to come up with a solution for us. And especially if it's very technical. There are several projects out there, and in essence, it asks the contractor to take on more risk, right? So we see that they're going to take on some risk, but we're going to pay for that. But at the same time, that allows that flexibility and have our industry and our partners, our contractor partners, to be more innovative with what they can propose and what they can find out what's out available in the industry. So you see more like 15% design, if I say 35% design in our regular design projects that we've been pushing out in these RFPs. And a lot of times we're capped on our budget, and we're going to have to design to budget, right? Build to budget. So we would just put it out there. We have, $900 million program amount. This is the construction amount. And these are public information on the E13 ones. These are, available and public information. But you would see, and we would say, this is the budget, and what can you give us for this budget? And we build in options where the government can choose and pick which options we plan to exercise. And then last but not least is the strong governance, right? Because this process through the lead design bill requires strong governance, and that's really engagement with the design team, with the project level teams, the senior level teams, and at some point the executive level teams, and just strong governance and partnership with our contractors. And that's all I have, and I'm open to any questions.
Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Michelle.
Go back, Michelle.
So, a lot of the limitations for Guam EPA to approve, big development is the absence of water-wastewater infrastructure on Guam. And with, a $2 billion projected budget, in 2028, has there been any discussion, and this is probably way above my pay grade, but is there any discussions to say, hey, we need to help Guam out by providing the upgrades to this infrastructure? Because otherwise, we're kind of, at that point where if you don't have sewer infrastructure, then we can't allow you to build a six-story, multi-housing unit. So,
yes, so we are currently have several large build-on projects for a new wastewater treatment plant in Cambridge Swamp and a new water treatment plant down south. And so that's being programmed right now. It's probably not, we're doing the advanced planning at this point. And there's also even power generation is another thing, another topic with GPA. We've been meeting with GPA and discussing our power needs. But yeah, we've been taking the one Guam approach on the water side and as well as the power side. But especially, we look at PIPA as our partner, right? We've been meeting regularly with Michelle and Pete and Glenn, and to try to expedite the permitting process and find ways, to shrink the time. And we started this self-certification process as well, and try to push that initiative. So that kind of speeds it up. But to go back to your question, Michelle, yes, we're looking at that, and we're very aware of what the impacts are, and the DOW and working with the local utility companies and see what the impacts are. That all goes through the NEPA process and is evaluated at a high level, and then when it gets down to the project level, each individual project will have its own NEPA document, if it's a CADEX or if it's a EA or EIS. But yeah, that's being looked at, and we are working with JRM, which is basically CNIC, and working with Joint Region Areas to find what other projects that they could pop up in the next 5-6 years to beef up because the utilities, the wastewater treatment plant, and even wastewater and water treatment plant are outdated, and they could be more efficient. There's technology to make it more efficient and have a small footprint.
If I could add to that, Michelle, sorry, Pete, scale, go move as we scale up. So if they're 1 deep at NEPA, could we request, or actually maybe even demand of NAFTAC, some engineers from wherever they come from and say, hey, we've got $2 billion worth of work. We need engineers. Yes.
So in the NDA, there's a direct budget for Guam EPA. It actually says to provide financial support to Guam EPA. Our challenge is that there isn't a mechanism to transfer that money from the federal government into the local government to fund Guam EPA in that effort. We do have an MOA with DOD or DOW now that allows for DOW to hire a third party, a contractor, basically to help facilitate the permitting process for Milcom projects. But only for Milcom projects, right? So, they strictly review to ensure that Milcom projects are complete before they come to us to minimize that.
Well, with that said, are you looking for the local ones here, or because we're already stretched out as it is, so would you be looking for it outside of Guam to help? You have that resource to do just that?
Well, there isn't that mechanism. Like, we've even contacted US EPA to see whether or not it can go to federal, and they would be the bypass, right, to us, but they couldn't do that. So there's
trying to figure out how to get the money to that.
Yeah. So even though there's a budget for it,
I got a great idea, but
we don't have it.
Yeah. Peter, you want to make a share?
Yeah, I just want to extend the combo on that because we are working directly with these contracted engineers. They're awesome, by the way, and they are helping us with design reviews on their MLCOM. But they're also helping us on permits, and they're also helping us with inspections. We're starting to push that envelope further and further, and almost to the point where can we go outside the fence, because that's where we need help too,
Yes.
Because you guys are eating up 80% of our staff time, and we support you, but actually, if you looked at our metrics, there's more going on outside the fence than there is inside, and we're still doing it, but to our expense.
Yes.
So, the MOA and the liaisonship we got is working, and we're moving that forward next year, hopefully.
So the mechanism is what we need to figure out collectively, and
Yeah, we've been actually budgeted for the last 3 years now, 4 years in the NDA. But again, it doesn't go to us.
Yeah.
The only mechanism that works is that DOW is able to contract for those engineers to help us. But again, it's their contract.
They're wanting control. They want to maintain control of those funds, and
And that's fine, but if the NDA says direct financial support to Guam EPA, then really it should go to Guam EPA, right?
And we're trying to, I think John Salas, our environmental director, is trying to figure out a way how do we get those funds to directly to.
Do we know between the two agencies how much is being held up because of such lack of mechanism, where the GRT, 4% of a couple $1 billion is more than what I make? I mean, I hate to sound, laugh about this, but yeah, I mean, the longer we hold these contracts, the longer the government does not have that BPT, the contractors that work. And it's such a ripple effect that it goes down to this little tip shop that I have that doesn't allow the guys to tip their car.
Well, we may not exist come, this time next year. We're losing, 85% of our budget is federal dollars, right? And, the national budget eliminates all of our categorical grant monies. So the way that Guam EPA works, we get like fiscal year 26 money at the end of the fiscal year. So while we've got a pretty healthy budget as it is right now, come October 1st of the new fiscal year 2027, we will not have federal money. So, I mean, to advocate for our agency, I want that funding.
Yeah.
I want that funding for my staff and our operations, and we don't have it. And the sooner
the better.
That mechanism, the better for us. But
Yeah. But any other question? Yeah, before we close, thank you very much. Eric, can we get that picture?